doing a sound check.
I did do a sound check. I can't remember what you were telling me on the phone because I couldn't find a pen in time.
Which part, like?
You were telling me about something about what it means to be human.
Oh, like humans are like clay. Like they're more. What was I saying?
I remember
like the difference between animals and human. Like animals are born and they just kind of know what to do. You know what I mean? Like they're more instinct based. Whereas humans have less instinct, but we're more adaptable. Like we're the most adaptable species.
Like we figured out how to make like wheels and fire.
But it's like a blessing and a curse because everything in society, it's like a runaway process. Like the more stuff that gets built, it's exponential.
What does exponential mean?
Like,
I'm not smart.
Like it keeps multiplying by a factor of 2.
That's how we got to iPhones?
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Like there's been more progress in the past 20 years than there has been in like the past 1,000 years.
Yeah, because we've had like the industrialization.
Yeah.
And
that was really the big like the Industrial Revolution. Once we were able to like mass produce things.
Yeah.
That's what really kicked it off.
And so it was funny. We had the discussion about Karl Marx, and I started looking into like what he did and what he was trying to get at, and like what I got to, or at least in the essentials. So he talks about it as the whole man, right? Mm-hmm. Like man needs a creative process, not just like I guess what was happening.
And that's something that's kind of been removed from like everything that humans do now is like extracted. Like emotions are extracted and like put into different things. So like, even like working out, like you go to the gym to work out, you go to the movies for entertainment, you go to the bar for like social gathering, but like 1,000 years ago you did all of those things in the same place. Like if you lived in a small village,
you did it around the campfire or whatever.
Everything was done like work didn't really feel like work. It was more just like community, it was more play.
Some of it was survival too.
It was survival, but you could rely more on your natural instincts. We're all confused of what our natural instincts are today.
So it was so funny, like you ever watch kids and you ever watch them play?
Yeah.
Like it's actually kind of astounding because they will make up their own games. Mm-hmm. They will make up how they like interact. They will figure out how to interact with one another, but they will just literally, there's no bounds for them.
Yeah, because their imagination, molded. They're not molded yet.
Yeah,
but
they're not like,
the older you get, the more you become molded by your environment.
You get up at this time, and you go to work at this time, and you are regimented, and you show up, and you do this, and this is you.
Oh, and you have to
get married and do this and do that. And
children don't have like an identity. They're just like they just exist. Like the older you get, the more
it's like taken away almost.
Yeah. You get that like imagination taken away. You get more, everything becomes like more and more refined. And you try to be more efficient in life. But by doing that, you kind of lose some things in the process. But the other interesting thing about humans is that at any point in your life, you can change. You can change the rules of your life at any stage, whether you're 5, 10, or 50. It's a lot harder the older you get.
Because do you feel like you
get more and more into routines. It's like I said, we're like clay, and you're like molding, but like the clay hardens as you get older. Mm. But you can still change it. It's just a lot easier when you're a kid. And that's where I think learning comes into play with that. Like kids learn so well. Like you learn your basic rules of life as a kid. Like school, like whether it's math, science, history, those things stick with you forever because you're so malleable at that time. and you're so in the present moment that when you're in the present moment, that's when information kind of like sticks with you. That's why it's harder to learn when you're in college.
Yeah, that's why I like if you teach someone like an instrument,
Right.
piano or something, like they kind of gravitate to it.
Mhm.
Whereas like after
And you already have like habits. So if you're trying to like learn an instrument at 25, like you already have preconceived notions of the world and your environment and ideas. So it's harder for you to like open up your mind to learn an instrument the way that a child can.
because it's like it's built in where you can just get to here's a 4 count. Okay, well, I understand it. Here's a graph, and we've built the notes on that, and here's how it fits in, on the keyboard.
I've always gone about music like very intuitively. Like I can't read or write music, but I can play music. Like I've just learned on my own.
What do you love about music?
It almost makes me feel like when I'm creating music, it almost makes me feel like a kid. It brings back that like spirit, especially when you play with other people. If you play like in a band or you play like in a group of people, even with just one other person, you kind of like go off each other, and it's just like it's the same thing when you're playing on the playground as a kid, and it's just like energy moving back and forth. So when you're playing an instrument with like you do something and they do something, and you need to have like some basis for like how to control the instrument, but I don't think you need to learn an instrument as well as people think you need to learn an instrument to play it. Like you could just pick up a guitar or keyboard and start hitting things until something sounds okay and work off that.
I think it's because I'm just so regiment. Like you're more free spirited than I am. I feel like.
You think so?
I'm very like, I don't know. I have my moments, but I think my mind wants to be regimented because it's just that's what was trying to.
I think my mind can't be, and that's why I struggled a lot as a kid in school.
So they
couldn't indoctrinate me.
So they kind of got me a little bit. They got me a little bit because, like, that's what makes music hard for me, and that's why I got so frustrated and I gave up on piano, is because like, number one, I had a bad memory, and like, well, number one, I didn't have very good discipline with it. I was 18. And I just didn't have very good discipline, like, and just like take a break and come back, take a break. Like I was all over the place. I'm still all over the place. Who am I kidding?
That's the free spirit.
A little bit, but like my brain can't get into like how this key, this finger needs to hit this key at this time, and then follow that,
Maybe that's something that I just like intuitively understand. Like I don't know how to explain how to play. I can play a keyboard,
right?
But I've never like learned how to play. Like no one's ever taught me how to play. When I started like
when did you start playing? Like any instrument.
The first time I got a guitar, that was my first instrument. I was probably like 13, and I was just terrible. Like I couldn't play at all. I had no idea how to play, and I would just like fool around on it. And it wasn't until I was probably like in my mid-20s that I started like coming up with my own music, and that really changed the game for me. Because I was always trying to like learn songs that I wanted to play. So I'd like go online and look up the music, try to read it, or like look up the guitar tabs. But it didn't, like I couldn't get the timing right. I couldn't remember like, oh, I play this here. But when I started creating on my own, it just flows easier. And then I was able to start just like listening to something and playing by ear.
Wow.
I can play by ear a lot better on keyboard than guitar.
So what do you talk about that love me? Like what do you listen to when you're
for like my music preferences?
Yeah, for music preferences.
Everything. I really like any kind of music. I've always been into like punk rock, emo. There's a specific genre of emo called Midwest emo.
Midwest emo.
Yeah, and it's a lot of like I don't know how to explain it. It's like the music, the lyrics are like emo lyrics, but the actual like the instruments are more technical. But I just always really liked the style of it, and like playing that, I started coming up with my own stuff. Oh, this was one big thing that changed like guitar for me. There's different tunings you can play in guitar. There's like standard tuning, and I discovered like other tunings, and so it kind of like erased everything I knew about playing guitar. Because you have like standard tuning, it's like E, A, D, G, B, E. So most songs are like based off that. And then I started like learning other tunings, like C sharp, Face G. So it kind of took away everything I knew about guitar because all the notes are in different places now. So I would just like hit a note, hit another note, and like if that sounds good, I'll keep going. If it doesn't sound good, I'll start over.
So you're really just
so it
like,
took away my conditioning.
You're just trial and error.
Yeah, it was that's how I learn everything, trial and error. And I have to fail to learn something.
There's a lot of that. Yeah.
That's honestly the best way that I learned, by failing.
It really is, because I feel like failing, it like trains your brain. And if you just learn not to be scared of it.
I don't know how to learn any other way. Like I can't memorize things.
Yeah.
I could never learn like traditionally.
Like with somebody teaching you,
Yeah.
this is what the scale is, this is how this works.
And that applies to like any type of education for me. Like I did terrible in school, like elementary school, middle school, high school. My grades were terrible.
I always felt like you were smart though. I felt like you were a lot smarter than me when you were in high school.
I guess I was like intuitively smart, but it didn't apply to like standardized learning. And I really went through like most of my life thinking I was stupid until
That's how I felt.
until I went back to college for nursing. And it was like something I was actually interested in.
They made this teachable.
Yeah.
They made this doable.
No, what it was, I don't think it was any different than like the teaching style I was used to, but I was interested in it. So instead of just sitting there and lecture and trying to absorb information, I was like actively seeking out the information. Like if I wasn't in class, I was still looking up what the kidneys did, what the liver does. It was just something I was interested in. And that
rather than like you need to learn math.
Yeah.
You need to read.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah,
I can't do something if someone tells me to do something.
I had a lot of trouble. Like I didn't really read actively until I read like Mitch Albom, like Tuesdays with Maury, and 5 People You Meet in Heaven. I thought 5 People You Meet in Heaven was like just an awesome concept. And
I think that was one of those books I never read.
It was awesome. I think it was my sophomore year or junior year of high school. And it was a digestible book. I mean, his books are like not much bigger than this. So it was like, oh, this is doable.
It's not intimidating.
Yeah, no, not at all. And it's very readable. And like I guess just the way he writes, like I guess it's just a testament to how he writes. Is just very good.
That's one thing I found, like reading books more as an adult. Certain authors, it's just a lot easier. I feel like different authors have a different vibe. And if you kind of align with one, it's easy. Like I could eat up a John Steinbeck novel, like it's nothing. But some people like can't get through those at all.
There's a lot of books like that, like because my dad tried to get us to read. My dad was a big reader, and I don't know. I guess it just wasn't in us as kids. Like me and my brother and my sister, like it just. My sister actually, she was a big reader. Like she took to school and she wanted to learn, and like my brother was actually pretty smart. I was just lazy and I just didn't pay attention very well. And like I'll be honest with you, teachers were boring as hell.
That was my problem. I just couldn't pay like my brain was just always all over the place. As a kid, I couldn't like lock down on one thing. It was like this person's telling me this teacher's telling me this. I'm getting in trouble for something that I don't understand why.
Did they put you on medication?
They
put me on medication.
I was on Ritalin.
Yeah, so was I.
When I was, I think in like middle school.
Yeah.
And it just made me fat, and it didn't help my concentration or anything like that. Like I said, there was just nothing. The only way I learned something was like by being interested in it myself. Or by failing at something and learn. Like some subjects in school I enjoyed, but for the most part, it was hard for me to just memorize something and then spit it back out for a test.
Yeah.
Like I just couldn't. That's just not my learning style, and I don't think that's a lot of people's learning styles.
No, that's what they like. That's what they wanted.
In fact, I don't think that's anyone's learning style. I think the people that were good in school learned how to learn like that, but I don't think it's a natural learning
because
style.
they had to.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were just like surviving. Is that what you think?
Yeah. I think some people like are very good at like following the rules, and not that that's a bad thing, but some people are just better at it than others. So they learned early on in elementary school, okay, this is how I have to do things.
I remember I just felt like I felt like I was very stupid. I felt like I remember one distinct moment. This taught me like to never really make excuses for myself, or like that I wasn't going to use it as a crutch. So there was a time when I took a test, and it was like a notion, like they're starting to tell the teachers, okay, like Brian's going to get like 5 more points than everybody else because he's stupid and he doesn't pay attention. And it was really like a crutch more than anything. It's like,
yeah,
he's challenged, okay? No, I was lazy. I just didn't want to pay attention.
I didn't think it was lazy. It was just like you had the same like ADHD brain as me, and like not like you're one of the most intelligent people I know. It has nothing to do with like grades or anything like that.
I think it was just I just survived. And like so there was a kid, like one of my classmates, he came up to me and he was like, here's my grade, we got, because they would say at the top of it, had that red ink
so
pen.
He was mad.
Yeah, he was like, I got we had 8 out of 10. We each had 8 out of 10. He's like, how did we get 2 different grades? And he was making a legitimate gripe because he had no idea. And he went up to the teacher, and this is like why why bosses tell you to never share your pay. You don't tell people how much you make because they don't want you to know.
Yeah, and that's exactly why you should share your pay.
Yeah, exactly. So he goes up to the teacher and he's like, hey, how come like we got the same amount wrong or we got the same amount right, and he's got a higher grade than I do? And she didn't know what to do. I think she just kind of panicked and she didn't know how to deal with it. She's like, you pay attention to yourself. And it was just like, I knew in the back of my brain, my little like, I think I was in 4th or 5th grade.
Was it, you went to Catholic school, right?
Yeah, I went to St. Philip's. And like, she just didn't know how to handle it. So she's just like, you just, and I was just like, man. And like, I remember like very well in that moment that I was never going to use like that little whatever, the ADHD or whatever. I wasn't going to use that as a crutch to be like, oh, I have, like they tried to make me feel like, oh, you're handicapped in some way. I'm like, no.
That was a big thing in like our generation. Like right before our generation in school, it was just like, shut up. If you can't do this, you're an idiot. And the only thing different, like even, I want to say like up to the 80s, there were no like IEPs or anything. It was either like you're in special ed or you're in regular classes. But there's just so many different types of learning styles. And now there's like more and more IEPs, like ADHD, autism. There's like you get extra time on your tests, extra points. So it's all trying to like compensate to get everyone to the same point. Yeah. When I think a better solution is trying to like understand everyone's learning style.
They've been doing that though.
Yeah.
Because when I went through education, I think they've been doing they've been trying to adapt more and more. At least when I went through education, 10 years ago, like they tried to understand what everybody's learning style was, and I think they've been trying to, find more and
That's
more
been the new
to,
thing in education. But it's like, it just doesn't make any sense. You have a classroom of 25 kids, and it's 25 different brains that have completely different experiences of life and things going on in their lives, and to expect them all to like just listen to something and be able to memorize it and spit it back just like doesn't make any sense.
Like you really need to, in order to be able to know it and know it well, you need to take the time to like read it
and be hands-on with it too.
Hands-on with it, repeat it. Like I remember when I went to the Boy Scouts, this was valuable. Like they taught us to like teach somebody else. The best way to learn, and they do this in the fire department too. Like if like a good mentor is like someone who's like, okay, I don't know about this. Okay, well, create a PowerPoint or something on it, and like it really forces you in like 5 different ways to do it. Because now you're like, it trains your brain so differently because now you have to like pay attention to whatever it is you're doing like so keenly.
Yeah.
If you have to teach it, it's so different.
No, teaching
Your brain like
something-
focuses because basically you don't want to look stupid.
That was something
and
that I
You
learned.
want to have a good product out there.
I learned that when I went back to school for nursing. Like I said, I was interested in it, and I would teach other people, like, because it would also help me learn. Because if you're teaching someone, you have to really know like the ins and outs,
And you have to know
understand
more.
it.
Yeah, that's what they tell you, especially when you do like public speaking, or if you have to teach something, you have to know more because you have to reciprocate questions and things like that. But
so there's like a thing between like the learner and the person and the teacher. So like if you're teaching someone something one-on-one, you have to like understand their learning style. But if you're trying to teach to 10, 15, 30 people at one time, it's just like a blanket way of teach. And the teacher does the same thing every day. They've been teaching the same subject for 20 years.
Yeah.
So to them, it's like second nature. So it's harder for them to break it down in a way that every single student individually can understand. But I think it's definitely getting better. There's newer styles of learning, and I've seen like more, because I worked in a middle school and a preschool, and things are a lot more like hands-on now. That's another thing too. Like I'm a very hands-on learner. I learn by failing, and I learn by doing things hands-on. Like I need to see a practical application of it, especially for like math and things. Like math was always my worst subject. Until I went back to school, and I started like understanding like why take like any equation and like actually understand why this equation works, like what's the geometry behind this,
you probably
what's the
learned
actual function of it.
You probably learn from like a different teacher in a different way. I think that's sometimes what it takes.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes like if you keep working with somebody and working with them and like they're still not getting it, there's something like you said, there's a connection.
There's a connection issue.
There's something in between there. There's a communication issue, and like you need to learn from somebody else. You need to YouTube it or something for somebody to explain it.
YouTube helped me out so much.
Oh, I love YouTube.
Because I could learn on my own terms. There's like a million people teaching the same thing, but like in like a slightly different way. So if you find like a YouTuber that you like that teaches you things in a way you understand.
And you're also not on somebody else's time either.
Yeah, you're on your own time. Take it at your own pace.
Yeah. I felt like also on the same lines of running was, on the same lines of learning was running helped a lot.
The discipline of,
It just, getting that, there's a different focus when you have that, I guess just that pent up energy or whatever the hell it is in you just knocked out of you. And like, when you understand, number one, that there is what did Coach Pontes always used to tell us? Like it's like so direct. Like running track and cross country, they were so direct in like your effort and your results.
It's so simple. It's literally the simplest sport.
Yeah.
Like you're just running. There's nothing complicated about it. The only thing that you can do is just push yourself.
And sometimes you just dig like everything hurts. You got side stitches. Your feet hurt. You're out of and you keep trying to keep up with that. Like you're just trying to catch up to that person, or you're just trying to stay with the group.
Yeah.
Oh man,
that's
so much dig.
It's like a really good analogy for life. Not that life is a competition, but when you're running a race, if you want to come in first place, the only way you're going to do that is by running faster than everyone and by pushing yourself. And whatever excuse, your feet hurt, you have side stitches, you have shin splints. No, like there's no extra points, there's no handicaps.
Right.
Like you just have to do it.
So just that grit, like I remember.
It's like that grit.
Yeah, there's a dig in there, like. So I remember I appreciated like what the hell, why we were doing 200s and 400s, like just these track workouts that would you just feel like you're awful. And we did them in all weather. We did them in
That was
snow.
another thing too, like running in the winter, like in the rain, in the snow. It like really, it kind of like set this, running helped me so much. It really helped me with like I've never been a disciplined person. So it's something I really needed, especially in high school.
Yeah.
Because if you're not being forced especially at that age, to go run in the snow. Like, who's gonna go out and run in the snow?
Yeah, there's no. Even now, it's like, man.
But you'd find the fun in it. You'd find like the camaraderie in it, even if it was raining, even if you were hurting.
And there was something like, it was just this miserable thing that we did together that you just like. There's something like I could call Alex or Adi or any one of the guys that we ran with up, and just like we could still, bond over that.
Yeah.
That nonsense of.
It's
like,
very similar to music.
Yeah.
Like I was saying before about music, like if you're playing with a group of people,
Yeah.
you're really like stripping away like everything, and it's just like the pure energy of a human being like bouncing around, going back and forth. And it's the same thing with running. If you're running in a pack, whether it's like a race or just practice, you kind of like push and feed off of each other.
My mind sometimes wanders. Like if I'm doing a long run or just an average run where I'm not really like working very hard, but like if I'm on the track, all I am thinking about is that next step. Like the other problem, the bills, the job, the whatever anxiety I had about my my
and that's what you need, an outlet. Everyone needs a physical outlet in life. It has to be something. Like, we're not meant to just sit and do nothing.
Yeah.
We need, like, even if you're stimulated mentally, you need to be stimulated physically just as much.
Yeah, I like just pushing to the point where just all you're thinking about is that next step.
Yeah.
And there's literally not, and you just like, it never hit me until like I was 28, 30.
I remember the first time that something like that hit me. I was running a race. I don't know. It was probably like my sophomore year or my freshman year, and it was outdoor track. I think I was running the mile, and it might have been like the first time I broke 5 minutes. And before the race, I was trying to like figure out my pace. Like, when should I do this? When should I do that? I'm like, I should try to conserve my energy here.
Yeah.
And I got to a point in the race, and I just like latched on to this one person that I knew was going to run under 5 minutes. I was like, all you have to do is just keep up with them.
Easier said than done.
I was
sometimes.
like, don't worry about. And I was like, you have to pick up the pace here. Don't worry about like losing your energy and then slowing down after. Just like, and it was just like one moment to the, like, I was like constantly in the present moment, just like one moment to the next, like step, step, step. I was like, don't worry about what happens next. Just do this now.
And it happens almost to where you don't even think about it.
Yeah.
Like someone told me like the best races are like a blur. You shouldn't really.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have.
Because
like, almost didn't remember.
You're like
it.
so in the zone that.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that's that zone they talk about.
It quiets like everything else down. Because there's just so much that we have to deal with as human beings.
Yeah. Tell me about this trip that you took.
Oh boy.
What led you? You texted me. You told me you were thinking about it, and then
I had been like toying with it for a while. So I've been like, I left my job in like mid-December.
Yeah.
And I've been out of work since then. I haven't like really been looking for a job, and I've just been like depressed. And it was just like I was getting stuck in this cycle of like doing nothing every day. And then like each day that went on, it would just get like worse and worse. And I couldn't like get myself out of it. So this trip was something that like I just needed like a change in routine. I really learned that like if you're not working, or you're not like in school or something like that, you take things for granted like early in your life because you're always in school, you're always like working, you always have something to do. But this was the first time in my life where I'm like, I don't have school, I don't have work, I don't have like any responsibilities, and I wasn't even like seeing my friends, I wasn't doing anything. I was just like sitting home, like just going for walks or going for runs, hanging out with myself. And I felt like so alienated like from everything. So you do need like a sense of like human interaction with other, like we're not meant to be alone. We're not meant to just like be by ourselves.
This was a lot of the problems with the COVID had and what was it called, the isolation,
the lockdown.
Everybody isolated, or they went to Home Depot.
Yeah, it really like COVID really shattered the status quo,
Yeah.
and a lot of people like probably for the first time in their life felt that isolation. Like we were saying before about humans, like we're malleable, but we can also easily get stuck in routines and patterns, and then have difficulty getting out of them. So think about like all these people who have just spent their lives working, going to school, stuck in their routine, and then all of a sudden, this outside force stopped that.
Like
It
that.
just like threw a wrench in that.
Yeah.
So people had to actually like sit with themselves and like have real thoughts for like the first time in their lives. So I felt like really bad for people who were like completely alone during COVID.
There were people who didn't go anywhere, like really anywhere. I mean, like I was, I guess fortunate in my job or whatever that, I had people that I had, I had to go to the station. I had people that I interacted with. But there were people, like we went to some homes, like people didn't go anywhere.
Think about like someone who had
And
like
just sat there with the goddamn news,
their
depressing them all day
job,
long.
their job went away.
Yeah.
And some people like living by themselves, like just some people at certain points in their life, they're not in a relationship, they're not living with family, and they're just on their own. But that was like a terrible time to be on your own and have that happen, because then you don't even have the outlets of going out on a Friday night, Saturday night, or your job or anything. It was a good thing for like, I think it was a good thing for families. I've heard a lot of people that have families like, wow, we got like so much closer during this time.
Yeah.
Especially people with kids, because the parents aren't going to work, the kids aren't going to school.
Yeah.
So you're forced to just like hang out with each other all day and form these connections that you should be forming normally as human beings. But like the whole system of you're born and then pretty much immediately separated from your parents. Like your parents your mom gets like maternity leave, fathers don't really get much leave.
Yeah.
But like as a baby, your mom eventually has to go back to work, your dad has to go back to work. So you got to go somewhere. You're not spending all that time with your parents, and then eventually you go to school. So you have a lot of time away from your family. So this was a time that like really brought families closer together. But for people that didn't have any kind of connection like that, I was still living at home at the time, which I don't know if it was a good thing or a bad thing.
Yeah.
But it was okay, and I still like went outside, saw my friends a little bit. But it was a rough time for a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people like really lost it during that time. But I think it was like a good wake up call for a lot of people.
Just, you mean for families and stuff like that?
Just
or-
for everyone as a collective society.
Yeah.
To have that routine completely shattered, even though it was like in the grand scheme of things, it wasn't very long, but to have like we believe so much in what we do in our daily lives, and to find out that none of it's really like real. Like we go to work, we go to school, we have our routines, but it can just be taken away in an instant.
Because it's all you think because it's all like man-made?
Yeah, it's all man-made. Everything we do is man-made, and that was the other thing I was going to say before. Everything we do is like so far from the like human experience.
Yeah.
I always think of like Native Americans or hunter-gatherers, where like you just you were with this group and you did everything together all the time. I can't imagine that many people got like lost. Like we have a lot of people in society now that just get lost because who's going to look out? Like you can just go out on your own and isolate yourself from people. But if you're living in a tribe, like you have more of a support system. Like if you're feeling down, there's going to be people to pick you up because you're a part of the group and you have to contribute to the group. But in society, you can choose to not contribute to the group, which isn't good for you and it's not good for the society. But everything is man-made. Everything that we do is pretty much man-made now.
Yeah.
And like all of our emotions, like I said before, is outsourced. You go to the club, you go to the gym, you go to work. So like everything is separate. And I think this is what you're saying about Marx.
Yeah.
What did he say about like
So I can't find
production? Because I don't remember this quote exactly, but go ahead.
So here's like the gist that I get from it, and I'm not a Marxist or anything, so just don't everybody calm down, okay? But I wanted to know more because there was a lot of talk about socialism, and, you know, Bernie and the revolution, the revolution. So I was like, okay, well, what's this guy really like all about? So I was interested, so I started reading. And I don't have a full grasp on it all. So
I found that most people are not what your idea of them is.
No,
That's why I love reading a book by like a person, like a controversial figure.
Right. So it was interesting because he talked about the whole man, right?
Mm-hmm.
And basically, what I perceive out of it is that the whole, because he wrote a lot bigger than I can understand, is that the whole man is like he needs to have some sort of a creative process and not just like a button pusher.
Think about how many people now don't have any creativity in their life.
Yeah, so here's where I'm going. So like he was around like the mid 1800s during like industry and factories, and like somebody, you know, you had a job and that was your job and that was it. Like that's all you did, and be lucky that you had a job, you know, because that's what you had. And I think like what he took out of it was like stripping away, you know, everything I guess that made up, you know, there's just nothing creative about it.
Like if let's say you're making a product, like let's say you're making a car, and they didn't have cars back then, but the same concept applies, and you're just on an assembly line, and all you're doing is putting the door on the car.
Right.
So you don't even have to understand how the car works. All you do is just stand there all day, operate this machine, put the bumper on the car, put the door on the car, put this light in. So you're removed from the actual process of the car. You're removed from the production of it.
I was looking for I was trying to find it because I actually took pictures of the book.
This is another thing about learning, like the way that we learn in school. When you learn when you learn math, like the area of a circle, and they teach you about like pi and the radius and the diameter. They're not actually teaching you like how it actually works, the history behind it, who came up with how to find the area of a circle, why it makes sense in the real world. Just like memorize this equation, put it back on the test. So you're removed from the actual thing. And that's the point that Marx was making about like a production, assembly lines, that you get up, you go to work, and you're just doing the same movement, the same thing over and over.
That's kind of what he was getting at, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I have to look more into it. I started it, and it was The Essential Marx. That was the name of the book. And so it had somebody's kind of breakdown of what he was talking about. And
was this book by him, or was it like
it was his? So they had his text in it from different writings that he had. So it was just taking like essential parts of his, or what somebody believed as his essential parts. But a lot of what he had was, I had the audiobook of one of his books, and it was a lot of it had to do with the proletariat versus the bourgeois.
Yeah.
Which is like essentially, I guess if you break it down, it's the rich versus the poor.
The rich versus the poor, yeah.
Or, you know, boss versus owner versus worker kind of thing.
So his whole thing, when he says like the workers have to seize the means of production, in a typical like scenario, you the worker, you're making a product, and the boss is getting the profits of that. And you're not seeing the profits from that. You're seeing like a designated, like, allowance basically from that, and you're not you're not part of the creative process for making that product.
Right, and this is one of the things like, you know, I think a lot of like modern mentors or whatever, you know, you have to make people a part of the creative process. Like you have to have people. Jocko talks about this in his books. Is like you have to bring people into ownership.
Yeah, that's it. It's ownership. Like if you work at the Gap,
yeah,
you don't have ownership. You don't feel like you have ownership over what's going on in the store.
Right, but if I had like a team meeting with all my, you know, cashiers or whatever, or the sales
and
people,
that's what they'll do. Like the store manager is like required by corporate. It's all from like the top down. The store manager tries to make the workers feel like they're part of the process.
Yeah, you like the old way of doing things, like you do this and you do this and you do this, and that's that. You don't question it. More modern way of thinking, like with what he's talking about and with what and I can't remember his name, but he's like huge. He owns like one of the biggest firms like in America. Anyway, I was reading his book about how he breaks down everything, and it just all talks about how you bring people in and how you you know, have them apart. Like, okay, you know, how do you think we can improve? You know, what do you see?
Right.
Because you're the one that's interacting with like if I'm the manager or whatever. You know, you're the one that's interacting with the customers every day.
If you're just
I want
told
you
what
to
to
pay
do.
attention to what the customers are doing. You know, like I'm just back here crunching numbers or whatever the hell it is I do. You know, I want you to tell me, like, because that's going to help sales.
Right.
You know, like
and it would help the profits as well.
Yeah.
If the employees had some say and like, hey, I see this is working out.
Yeah.
The customers like this.
Yeah.
Or this isn't working. Maybe we should try something. Like in a typical, like, let's say retail scenario, the employees aren't coming up with like ideas on how to better run the company.
Right. It'd be like if I had, you know, I'd be like, hey, I want you to look at, you know, how the customers are interacting with, you know, like what are they going towards? Okay, well, hey, well, maybe we could redesign the store, and that's going to be your like that's going to be, you know, it's like, oh, okay, you know, and that's like that gives you a chance to, you know, leg up and
the
all that
problem
stuff.
with that working is that like any of like the like big stores, like let's take like Target or Walmart, like no employee there is going to have any say in what's going on.
Well, yeah.
Everything is coming,
I'm just using this as an example of what
everything's coming from the top down, so that you have like consistency across the entire country. So Walmart in New Jersey is the same as Greensboro, or the same as Jacksonville, Florida, or the same as San Diego. And that's how you have all these places, like everywhere in America looks the same.
I hate shopping.
Like, yeah.
I hate
all shopping plazas look exactly the same.
Everyone.
It's always like a Target, a pizza place, like
a
everything.
BJ is a Five Below.
Everything is so cookie cutter.
Yeah. Oh, I absolutely hate it's just, I don't know, maybe that's that part of me that's just, there's a need for it. Yeah, Marx talks about this too. He said, like, he's not mad at capitalists. That was actually the actual part of the book was, he's like, I understand why there's a need for it. You know, he's not like trying to, I guess he wasn't trying to, you know, break down the system.
Yeah, I don't think he was entirely against capitalism, just more of like...
Or he wasn't against like business.
What he was against, it, capitalism eventually will destroy itself because it always requires more and more and more and more. And eventually there'll become a point where the planet just can't sustain it, which is a direction that we've been moving towards.
You think so?
Where like I
haven't looked into this at all, so.
Everything like, all right, I thought about this when I went to California for the first time.
Yeah.
It's a desert, right? Like most of California is desert. Like it's not, West Coast and East Coast are very different. Everything's green over here. West Coast is a little bit drier. But you go to a Target over there, for example, and they have a perfectly manicured lawn. It's green, which means how are they doing this? They're taking water that's precious in that area and using it to try to create something that looks the same everywhere across all states. So they have to, like, McDonald's, like any place like that has to maintain a consistency in every single store, but it has to take into account the environment. Like, every parts of the country are different. New Jersey is a very different environment than Texas.
I heard someone say this today. Like, you can't have the same rules because not everything, like every state is just completely different.
There's different physical landscapes and environments. But if a Walmart wants to put up a Walmart, they're gonna make it work wherever it is, which is gonna drain the natural environment. So everything we do is like at war with nature in order to try to like maintain this capitalist consistency across all states, across the world, which is why we've been having like more effects on the planet.
You think so?
I think we definitely have like a huge hand in the direction that the planet is going, because we're constantly like depleting the resources of everything, everywhere. Like, landscapes are changing. Like, whether you want to believe in global warming or not, we definitely have a hand in. Let me think of an example. The Everglades in Florida, where you go to any national park, and there's a story about like what it used to look like and how it no longer looks like that or functions like that. When I was in Florida, not this time, but a few months ago, I was at Everglades, and they have to like pump in all this water to try to maintain the landscape and preserve the park, which it would do that on its own if Florida hadn't been completely leveled out and built upon. So every time you put up a store, a shopping plaza, it's going to affect the environment. And it's not like each PetSmart, each Five Below itself is not a drain on the environment, but when you have thousands of them all across the country, it starts to deplete the natural resources of the land. There's no respect at all for nature.
No, we just build, I guess.
We just build, yeah.
But like on the other side of that, so I was listening to like the thing that Jordan Peterson has, and he definitely does have a bias, I think.
Towards what?
Towards whatever it is Jordan Peterson has a bias towards. I do think he does sometimes.
He definitely does. I see where his bias goes. Like, he always has such rational points, and I see the point where his bias is coming into play and derailing it.
So it's funny, like I can listen to, so I've tried to, after like talking with you and like, you know, I guess doing this program and everything, and, you know, talking with everybody, like when I listen to something, I know what I'm listening to. Mm-hmm. You know, like if I listen to NPR, like I know what I'm listening to.
That's the biggest thing. Like, you could listen to whatever you want, but be aware of the biases.
Exactly. See, and I think that's what a lot of people miss, is like they're being sold. I feel like people are being bought and sold every day, depending on what they listen to. But it's like, look at who they're owned by. You know, like they're all pretty much owned by the same couple corporations.
Again, the human nature comes into play in the sense that we can be molded by anything.
Yeah.
And anyone who has like a bias or a financial interest is going to play into that. So NPR or Fox News, they're trying to get you to believe that they're the one and only truth.
Yeah. But they're I mean,
and a lot of people fall
they
for.
They skew the truth entirely. Like, okay, here was an example. This is exactly what I was talking about. When we had, like, you know, if I had never gone to Mexico before, right? Andy Eversole, he went to Mexico. This guy travels the world doing banjo. He meets people on the street every day. And, like, I asked him, how do you do it? Because the world is such a dangerous place. And he's like, man, you just have to, you know, you have to watch people. You have to trust people. You have to trust your intuition. You know, and like if someone, you know, if you you talk to a couple different people and they all tell you not to go down a certain street, don't go down that street. Like,
I trust the opinion of like a handful of human beings more than I do
Right.
an entire like news corporation.
But if you watched if you watch the news, like 2 people just died in
Mexico, yeah.
Now I don't know what the circumstances of their death were, if they were just in the wrong place at the wrong time, or if
I
it
mean,
was just,
is it a more dangerous place than America? Of course, but it doesn't mean that you can't go there.
right?
The world isn't as scary as the news makes it out to be.
So that, like, just talking to a bunch of different people and just like listening to everybody's opinion and based on what they listen to or what they hear or who they hang around. But I think your conversation with me, it was funny, like the 2020 thing, like we didn't agree at all. Like we were on, during all the protests, during like summer of 2020, we were in 2 totally different places. But it was so funny, like after like that summer, I started to realize like what was like how everything was, the inner working parts of everything. And that's why, like, so now I try and listen to everything, but I just know what I'm listening to when I listen to it. You know what I mean? That way, like, I get a varied amount. So I get my NPR. It's like, okay, this is what's going on. Like, this is what's going on in Congress. And then I was like, okay. But then I go over to, another station. Like,
you have to have your own inner compass,
right?
So
and
that
then
you know how to
but
navigate
you get the other side
the information that's coming, because we are easily manipulated. So having like a strong inner compass allows you to take information in, take your environment in, and form your own conclusions based on it.
And it's your own experiences too. It changes, how you interpret the world, I guess, or how you interpret information. So
that's why I like to take in a lot of information. Like, you know me, I'm very open-minded, so I'll listen to Jordan Peterson, I'll listen to Joe Rogan, I'll listen to NPR, I'll listen to anything.
See, I like Jordan Peterson. Like when we had this conversation, like when he tells me about like, how you, clean up your room before you criticize the world. I'm like, ooh, that's powerful right there. Like when you read his 12 Rules for Life or Beyond Order.
So many people criticize him for that, for saying clean up your room. It's become like a meme, and people like.
But I mean, it's like you have to take it with a grain of salt. It's like your house, your house is always going to have issues, or there's always going to be something going on.
Right.
But I mean, like.
But you feel better if you have control over your environment.
But here's where I take that. Like, so here's where I go with that is like, how am I going to criticize Congress? It's like, oh, they don't know how to work with one another. It's like, okay, well, dude, like you're on your 3rd, 4th divorce. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how are you gonna tell Congress how to work together if you can't get your own house, together?
The best thing you can do for the world is have yourself together.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Because number one, you're not gonna be a burden on society.
And it's really the only way. Like, if you want to start helping people, if you want to start making a difference, the only way you can do that is to understand yourself first.
Like, figure out, learn a skill, read, just, be a decent human being for the most part.
It's hard. It's not easy.
Oh, some people, it is.
Life is very complicated and messy.
It is. And sometimes we make it more complicated than it has to be. But anyway, so we were talking about this. So you went to Florida, right?
Oh yeah. So I drove down from North Jersey all the way down to Florida. I got the rental car last Tuesday. So it's this big Ford Expedition. Slept in the back of it a few nights. It's been a great trip. I made it down to North Carolina the first night, and I've just been finding like national parks to sleep in. And then I was in Orlando. I went to Disney for a day. Stayed in a hotel down there. Just after Disney, I was just too exhausted.
How was Disney?
It was great, actually.
Yeah.
I got like a really good understanding for like how Disney operates, because it's insane. Like, the place is huge and everything runs so efficiently. And I wonder, like, how do they do it? And it's because every single person that works there, like, they understand the assignment. They're on board.
They have buy-in. They explained this to us because I worked at Greensboro Grasshoppers for a little bit, and I was glad I did. I worked there for a season, and they had like the Marlins team, like their corporate people came down there, and they explained stuff to us, and they said there is a place, or they what they do is they get everybody to buy in. Like there's a complete buy-in, and when you are in character, you are in character all of the time because they want to sell that. It's about the experience more than anything for that 5-year-old that comes in that wants to see.
Do you know what I realized?
What princess whatever, you know?
It's for the adults.
Is it really?
Yes. And I was leaving Magic Kingdom. It was like 11 o'clock at night. Kids don't need Disney. They'll find the beauty in anything. They'll look at a guy dressed up as Elmo in Times Square and lose their mind because kids just see the world like that. But I'm leaving Magic Kingdom. It's 11 o'clock at night, and I see like parents like running around like happy with their kids. I'm like, oh, it's to put the adults in a good state of mind, which puts the children in a good state of mind.
Because the parents are freaking out, yelling at the kids.
Right. Children are so dependent on their parents' mood, whether it's good or bad. Whatever their parents are feeling, whatever their parents are going through.
I've heard this about dogs too.
Yeah.
Dogs will latch onto that.
A good way to like judge a person's character is like how their pets behave. Because their pets, whether it's a cat or a dog, a pet is gonna, like if a pet is stressed out, you know that its owner is probably a stressed out person. So in Disney World, like everything just flows. Like I said, the world is just like messy, it's clunky, things don't always work the right way. But the second that you walk into Disney Park, it's like you can kind of just relax and everything is like taken care of for you. So it puts the adults in a more relaxed state and a happier state, which then trickles down to the children.
Wow.
I think that's like the real magic of it.
I never ever thought of that.
I realized that, like, that was the first time I thought of it that way. I saw like this dad like sitting in like he was like sitting on the stroller and just like running around with his daughter. And like, it's 11 o'clock at night. Like, they wouldn't be doing this anywhere else. So kids are always ready to go. They're always ready to be happy. But it's the parents that bring them down because of the natural stresses of life.
We got like 2 minutes left.
Oh, right. I didn't even know we had a time limit.
Oh, we did. Well,
what do you got left?
Well, just because like if I didn't, I mean, because I want to walk through downtown and everything, and I think you'll enjoy it. I'll walk you through some of the history of this place that I know.
So I just wanted to say, if anyone is like going through a rough point in their life, just take a trip. You have to like.
How helpful was this to you?
It's like definitely. I know that I'm gonna look back on this as like a life-changing moment for me. Like I didn't have any plans. All I set my mind was I'm gonna get a rental car and I'm gonna go to Disney World. Yeah. Like that was the only plan I had. And like whatever happens along the way, I was just stuck in this cycle. And my fiance Katie was telling me, she's like, you need to throw the wheels off. You're just like spinning your wheels. She's like, you're not going anywhere. You're stressed out, but you're not doing anything. You're not getting anywhere. She's like, you have to like throw a wrench in this. So like taking this trip really threw a wrench in my life in a good way.
So like I was gonna ask how she was about this, because when you told me you weren't going with Katie, I was like,
oh no, I mean she had work. She couldn't take off work. We were actually just in Florida in the middle of January, so she couldn't really get off again. But like I said, I've been out of work, just
you've been trying to
depressed, anxious, lazy, unmotivated.
You've been trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this trip definitely put me like in the right direction. So I would suggest to anyone who's like just kind of stuck in life, just change your surroundings.
That's awesome. Like
and just go with it. like this trip wasn't easy because
Yeah.
I went into it like anxious and depressed, and I just kept pushing myself like every step of the way. There were so many points where I was like, I'm just gonna turn around and go home. Like, I can't do this. This is stupid. I'm wasting more money. Like, but I was like, no, just keep going. Just keep going. Keep going. Even like the night before I went to Disney, I was in Florida and I was like, I can't do this. I'm just gonna go home. And I'm like, dude, you're right there. Like, just go. Like, just keep going. And it's really like paid off.
What was stopping you? Like, was it just something in you that just said stop, or?
Just like doubt and fear. I had, like I said, I had gotten so trapped into this like routine that wasn't good for me, and that became like my comfort zone. So like literally doing anything was like out of my comfort zone. So this trip like really took me out of my comfort zone. And the only way to learn is to get out of your comfort zone.
Have you ever felt like you were here before, like in this state of anxiety? Like, is this how it's always been for you, or?
Yeah, I mean, it's something I've always kind of like struggled with.
Yeah.
I tend to like overthink a lot, and I know that like causes a lot of it. Just learning.
You know what's funny on this last trip, when I went up to Jersey, Amy was really good. Like, my wife, she said something about, I can't remember what it was. And I was like, I don't know. I tried to make plans with James, and like, and she's like, you need to be patient. She knew. Like, she had a better,
she
like,
has like an insane intuition.
She really does. She has it better than I do, because I don't know if it was just the environment I was in. Like, I just couldn't, like, you're my best friend, and I like couldn't get in your head. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I didn't know.
'Cause I was so
freaking
closed
clue.
off to like everything and everyone. Like, I wasn't hanging out with my friends. I would like, even when you came up there, I was like nervous to hang out with you. I was like, what's wrong with you? Like, this is one of your best friends.
I've known
your
you
best
since
friend.
I was 17 and you were 14, or somewhere.
And
in
I remember like feeling better like instantly as soon as we started hanging out.
Yeah, but like,
it just takes a little bit of like pushing yourself sometimes.
I can't believe like because I'm pretty intuitive, but I had no freaking idea.
I just had like so many walls up.
You whatever you did, you were good at hiding them. Like, Amy knew. She was like, because I guess she knew somebody she's like, you need to. I think she said you need to let them come to you or something like that.
Yeah.
And she knew, and I was like, I had no freaking idea. I'm sorry. Like, I really had no idea.
Her and Katie have very good intuition.
Yeah, I felt like Katie kind of knew too. Like, just like, kind of observing her and the way her body language or whatever, just.
But she's also been unable to help me because I had to help myself.
Yeah. Man,
So.
I had no idea. I'm so sorry. Like, I really had no freaking idea.
I mean, you've helped a lot, like just
Really?
talking to me, like just constantly trying to keep in touch with me.
I try.
But that's just life. It's just a learning process.
Yeah.
Just try to do your best every day.
Yeah. There was something about nursing that really just like hit hard with you. Just the everyday, the paperwork, the nonsense.
Oh man, it was because at that time, like I was also like having a lot of depression and anxiety at that time, so it was hard to like. It was so difficult to get through. Like each day, I just had like no energy.
Mm-hmm.
And the job, like certain aspects of the job, I really loved, like interacting with my patients, caring for them. I'm just not really one for like paperwork and a lot of rules. There's a lot of rules. So it made, like, there are a lot of things that, especially if you're working for a big hospital, and I understand where they're coming from. They have to have a lot of rules, but it makes it harder to take care of your patients in some ways. So it was just getting like really frustrating.
Because you just had so many other check boxes you had to hit.
Yeah, it was like, and I was trying to like spend time with my patients and like take care of them in the ways that I knew they needed to be cared for, which isn't always like what your daily routine is. Like you have to kind of have an intuition to be a nurse and understand what your patients are looking for. So I'm able to see that, but there were so many barriers in the way of actually getting them what they need from me. And I saw a lot of other nurses were like, you just have to check the boxes. Like you can't always like be there. You can't constantly be running to the rooms. And I would see nurses that were there for like only a year or a few years who were just completely like, I don't want to say they don't care, but they're so like worn down,
Right.
so burnt out that like they're not giving patients what they need.
What
But
kind
it's insane. The main issue is like the staffing. Like hospitals just do not hire enough nurses. There's just not enough people working.
What kind of floor did you work on?
It was a medical surgical floor, so it could be like anything. People would come in with like appendicitis, or they had a surgery, or anything. But you have like a schedule you have to follow. Like every hour, there's like medications to give, assessments to do, things to fill out. If someone's going for surgery, coming back for surgery, there's just so much to do. And if you have like 6 or 7 patients, which was typical, it's just too much. And at the time, like I also wasn't grounded and balanced myself. So I wasn't able, because I saw nurses there that they're like pros. Like they know how to do this. They know how to manage it all and give the patients what they need. But that takes like years and years of experience.
Yeah. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of patience with yourself. That's one thing that I've figured out. It's hard to...
People are a lot harder on themselves.
Yeah. This is what, and I can't remember what the aspect of it, but my buddy Jake and I, when we went to, when we could go see Jordan Peterson over in Durham, he was like, you know, people were, I really liked his Q&A. That was probably like the best part of the whole talk. Because the rest of it was like way over my head. But like when people were asking like practical questions, because it was on Beyond Order.
Oh yeah, because he's speaking like a research paper.
Oh my god, it's like dude, I didn't have it. Like I needed a dictionary, and I needed to like hit pause and be like, okay. Like I needed to put all the words together to. Oh god, because
that's when I listened to the audiobooks. I was always like skipping back. Like, what did he just say?
Yeah. Oh, it was like we couldn't keep up. Like we looked at each other like, what did we just sign up for? Like why? And what he does is he picks out a rule, and he went with I think it was about art, and it had to do with his wife was going through. He's been through hell, like literal hell. Like his wife had cancer, his daughter had rheumatoid arthritis, and he went
through a lot of stuff too.
Like a lot of a movement disorder or something like that. Like he had trouble moving, and he was still writing the book at the same time. Like that is discipline.
The biggest thing I saw with it was like going through like his mental health issues, because when he got more into the public eye, he faced a lot of criticism.
Yeah.
And whether it was justified or not, it really like sent him for a loop.
Yeah.
I think at one point he ended up like addicted to benzodiazepines to try to like handle the stress, and he was just not in good shape.
Yeah, he writes about all that in the prologue of his book.
And in the prologue of I think 12 More Rules.
Yeah, and that was probably my favorite book that he wrote. I think he learned how to like break it down. I couldn't read his first one, which was Maps of Meaning. Like I couldn't.
I couldn't make it through that. The audiobook was like 30 hours.
Well, my brain couldn't. I got halfway through and I gave up. I've never given up on I hardly ever give up on a book.
No,
I was like,
couldn't
I need
make
to
it
meet
through.
this at like another time, because this is just not. That thing is like that big.
Yeah.
And it's like way out there. He's like in the cosmos somewhere in the universe, and it's not where my head is.
I think that's where he goes wrong with it. He's a very logical person, but he tries to like logic things too much and loses a little bit of common sense along the way.
Yeah. You just have to, I mean, I just don't have...
Like life isn't a math problem. It's not a logic problem. There's variables that we don't even understand
Right.
going on.
Yeah, but anyway, that's what he was talking about was how it it gets to where I can't remember what he was like what the question was, but he's like people are a lot harder on themselves than anybody ever realizes. Like people are always their own worst critic.
Anyone else like
Everyone's
going through
it.
what I was going through, I'd be
Yeah.
like, oh, I totally understand. Like, but I couldn't give myself the grace that I would give a stranger
Yeah.
on the street.
Yeah, that's the hard part. Is when you go through stuff like that and do you ever find yourself like in a loop?
Yeah,
Like
that's essentially what I was going. It was just like this loop, like running around in circles.
Yeah. That's
And like
hard.
the more you let that go on, the harder it is to break out of that.
Yeah.
But like I said, one of the beautiful things about being a human being is that you can break out of anything.
Right. And that's cool that you took this trip and that you were able to do that. And I'm glad you stopped here.
Me too.
Um,
Even like on the way, like I was debating if I was gonna come down like on my way down or back up, and like even
Yeah.
on the way down, like I wasn't ready to like come and see you and hang out.
is there any reason, or is it just?
I was like still. It took this trip for me to like break out of that loop, but it took a few days.
Yeah. I was lucky where I had this flexibility. Like I was literally gonna like take off work. I was like, if you came down Sunday, I was like, dude.
Oh yeah.
I was like,
Yeah,
just
you were like, I'll take off. It's no problem.
It's no problem. I was like, I'll take off, like, cause I see you maybe once a year now, and I was gonna go back to that 2020 thing. It's like we didn't agree so you and I, we drifted like a lot in our lives. Like we were best
We
friends.
always come back to each other.
We had we were best friends in high school, and then like I went to college, and then you eventually went to college. I came back for your graduation, and then we just kind of intertwined. I remember your mom was I wrote this down actually. Your mom was upset that like I didn't have your number, or you didn't have my number because I changed numbers.
Oh yeah.
And I guess I just never told you because like I said,
I mean,
we had
distance
drifted.
will do that.
Yeah, we just drifted. That's all, and it wasn't anything like bad. But your mom, I just remember your mom was very upset that like, I guess because we were close, and she just.
But I've never worried. I've always known that it's such a strong connection that
Yeah.
it doesn't like we could go 5 years without talking and then just pick up right where we left off.
This isn't the funnier part about the whole situation was. So like through my Dave Ramsey process, we talked a little bit, and you said like I understand what you're doing, and then during 2020, I can't remember what it was. You took a picture of like City Hall, or you were in New York City, and
Oh yeah, I went to quite a few protests.
So how many did you go to?
Actually, it probably wasn't that many. I think it was like 3.
3.
It was Asbury Park. I think I went to 2 in New York.
Yeah.
And then 1 in our hometown.
At Clifton, and God, there were so many feelings about.
It was a highly emotionally charged time, and it was right at the time of lockdown and everything. So you have all these people who, like I said, everyone's loop got disrupted, and it was like the perfect storm of like everything happening at once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so then we started talking on Messenger about all these different things, and we were in 2 totally different places.
Yeah.
We didn't like. It was funny because like there were people who lost like complete friendships during this, and I found it kind of funny and like remarkable that you and I like we completely disagreed. We were just like, okay, I get where you're coming from, and
Yeah.
then we just went about our ways, and like
That like really helped me a lot because I feel like there are a lot of things at the time I was ignorant to, and a lot of things that you were ignorant to.
Yeah.
And we kind of like
we just met in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was like, huh, okay. And then, God, there was a lot of things that happened, like, right then, and like the world just went crazy right then, and
It
But
was
anyway.
like everyone off of work, all these protests happening.
Yeah.
Like it was just a lot all at once for the world.
Yeah. And that's when you started getting into nursing and everything.
Mm-hmm.
It was because of that. Or not because of that, but you were... Did you have that intuition before that? Or like, did you always want to do that?
For
or?
nursing?
Yeah.
I feel like that's definitely like inside of me.
Yeah.
Like being a nurse, it's like definitely a part of me.
Yeah.
And I'm excited that like, even though I'm at a break in it right now, like I have a whole career ahead of me with that. I decided to be a nurse like after I got sick, after I had like my own health issues. But I've always thought about it, like even from a kid. So I always felt like gravitated towards that.
How are your health issues now, if you don't mind me asking?
They're like, that's another thing I've been like struggling with, and another thing that's like been getting me down, because I've been like struggling with my health issues. And yeah, it's just kind of been like complicating things. But I realize it's a thing that I need to sort out.
Yeah.
Like maybe go back to the doctor and figure out like what they can do. What was I gonna say? It's just so after I had the my colon removed, it's just a lot of like I go to the bathroom a lot because I just have like less intestine, so I'm always like bloated. I'm always like uncomfortable. I was talking to Katie about it once, and she's like, "It sounds like menstrual cramps." So I feel like the pain, like period pain, like that's the closest thing I can describe it to, just because like my anatomy is different inside, and I still have like a little bit of symptoms from ulcerative colitis. So it's like a lot of bloating, inflammation, and then when I do go to the bathroom, like I usually have a hard time. And that's been an interesting thing on this trip, because my comfort zone was like home, and a lot of times I have to like sit in the bath after going to the bathroom because it'd be so painful. But past few nights I'm like sleeping in a car, and I have to go crap in the woods and just like deal with that pain, manage like all the emotions that come with that.
Oh, so you're saying like this forced you into like a
different
zone.
This trip forced me physically into a different zone as much
Yeah.
as it did mentally. I've started like, that's another thing. I've started like developing this fear of like traveling, going anywhere, because of my stomach issues. Because it's been like so hard to be away from home, like my comforts of home. So it was like I've been like physically limited by this. So this was another thing that like this trip really helped me with.
Yeah. Do you feel like you feel better now that you?
No, I don't feel any physically better,
Yeah.
but I feel like I can like handle it a little better.
Whereas like you're just like, oh well, I dealt with this in the car or whatever,
Yeah,
so
and
I
like
can
being
handle
home,
this
like
better.
it's nice when I'm home because like I have my own toilet, my own bathroom, my own tub, so it helps like the pain and discomfort, but it's not how I want to live my life. Like I'm a traveler, I want to travel, I want to explore, and so that's been like something physically I've had to overcome.
Oh man.
But it's just, yeah, it hasn't gotten any better physically, but I've learned how to like deal with it.
Yeah. So how long have you had the colon issues?
So in, hold on, I need a sip of water.
Yeah, go ahead.
When I was 22, I'm 30 now. When I was 22, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which is an autoimmune disease that attacks the colon, so your digestive tract starts from your mouth, goes all the way out the other way. After your stomach is your small intestine. After the small intestine is the large intestine, which is also the colon. So I had to have my entire colon removed. And what the colon does is reabsorbs water from the things that you eat and things that you drink. And it also is just like a place to store food waste that's waiting to go out. So where someone with a colon would have to go to the bathroom once a day, everyone's a little bit different, twice a day maybe. Like as soon as I eat, I have to go to the bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been like challenging on the road.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, there's nothing I can really do about it except learn to deal with it. And I had to have the surgery. Even if I didn't, I had the surgery. So it's just something I have to learn to live with.
Yeah.
But it's hard when you have like a physical limitation, or I don't want to say handicap, but it kind of is like a handicap in a way. And you have to like figure out ways to like reformat your life around it. But it's doable.
Yeah. I guess that's probably harder with nursing because you're constantly.
That was another thing too. Like, so without giving like TMI, but some days like I'll go to the bathroom 10, 15 times a day, and working like a 12-hour shift it's excruciatingly painful, especially like towards the end of the day when I start getting worn down.
Mm-hmm. Oof. I can't imagine that.
Yeah. How long have we been doing this?
Yeah, this is going to be an hour and a half
All
program. I always thought about believe. Like, what do you believe in? That's a deep question right there.
I'm starting
because you and I, we both grew up Catholic.
I'm starting to believe in myself.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of different. My mind is open as far as like religion, spirituality goes. I don't know. I just don't know. But I feel like I don't want to go down the road of like believing in something to like try to outsource my pain or responsibilities. So yeah, I've just been trying to believe in myself, take things like one day at a time.
Do you think people do that? They outsource their pain and responsibilities?
I don't want to say that's what religion is for, but I think like it can be used for that. It can definitely be used for that. It can be used as a way to like format your life, like a set of rules or a way to like make sense or understanding of things.
Excuse me.
But I really don't know. Like something I'm still undecided on.
I know.
There's a lot of things that make sense. Like there's a lot of things from Christianity that make sense. There's a lot of things from Buddhism that make sense to me. I'm sure I can like look at any religion and find things that make sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know a whole lot about. I mean, I took world religions, but I forget. Like, what was it?
There's just a lot of like common ground. Oh, shit.
Hello. I have an orange from our friend in Miami.
If you look into any religion, they pretty much say like the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to get at the same things.
It'll be all right.
I don't know if there's one that's right or wrong.
Yeah. I always said I at least want to finish the Bible, and then like kind of move.
I started reading the Bible. Haven't made it all the way through.
Yeah.
It's definitely something I want to like read and form my own opinions about.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely some truth to it, and like we've talked about before, it seems like it's a guide. And I guess that's what like having faith is. If you were to take the Bible and follow the rules of it, you could have a pretty good life. But I think what I'm trying to do is figure out how those things make sense independently of any kind of like religion. Like what's my own sense of right and wrong?
Right. See, so it's interesting. Like I read, if you're not going to read anything else, read Proverbs, or at least as far as I've gotten, Proverbs, Psalms, and Ecclesiastes is probably like my favorite book because I think a lot of it is about balance. And still my favorite, so far my favorite quote, Bible quote is vanity of vanities, everything is vanity. Vanity. Everything we do is vanity. If you work too much, it's vanity. If you work too little, it's vanity.
When you fall into vanity, you can get lost into things. It's easy to go towards something that makes you feel good or feels easy or feels comfortable. And I think everything is good in moderation.
That's exactly what he talks about, balancing everything. So it's like you drink your wine, just don't be stupid.
Right.
Drink too much. You can work, but like
what's the easiest thing you can think of? Like just the most comfortable feeling, like sitting on the couch watching TV.
Probably.
Like that works for a while, but even like if you do that for 5 hours straight, your body starts to tell you like, hey, we got to do something. We got to like move.
Right.
And I think your body has like natural cues to tell you what to do. And I think a part of like our man-made society is that our bodies are confused on what to do.
You think there's too many because we have, well, I'll take the example, you got the couch, you got the TV, we have Netflix.
It's too many options.
We thought drive-ins, like when I was a kid, like man, McDonald's drive-in was like, man, you get like this poisonous fat food right here. That's really what it is. It's this poisonous fat food. You don't even have to get up. They've made it even worse. They got what's one of them apps? Uber Eats and all these other things, which
that's like, and
you literally just
that really took off during the pandemic.
Yes.
But now it's like you don't even have to leave your house for anything anymore.
Nothing.
That's not a good thing.
And you could work from home.
You could work from home. I don't like working from home. I think that like I know most people would choose to work from home.
I can't do it.
Obviously, my job, I physically can't work from home. But even if you could work from home, it's like there's still something lacking from it. Like you're lacking the sense of community, coworkers. I know it's like things that people complain about, like, oh, I don't want to go to the office, but there's something to going to the office and seeing your coworkers and being physically present together.
I'll give you an example. Like I work with Sanji, who like we share an office, and she grew up in a totally different world than I did. She was born in India. I mean, that's just like
right. And if you were both working remotely from home, like you wouldn't have that connection. You wouldn't have that experience. You would just know her as it's this person. And
and I asked her, like, I've learned a lot about her culture and how things. It's funny, her kids, they don't like Indian food.
What do they eat?
She always tries to
McDonald's?
make Indian food. Yeah, they like American food. They grew up here in America. They like American food. It's funny. She always tries to make Indian food at home.
I feel like everything that we think of as like a convenience, like working from home, Uber Eats, drive-through, there's always like a cost. You're missing like the nuance of like we said, working from home. Like going to the office, it might suck. It might suck getting in the car, commuting, having to sit there all day. But there's so many things about that day that you wouldn't be getting if you're working from home.
Right. I think it's just
food is our biggest thing. Like we have no connection whatsoever to like
we
food.
talked about this, like killing the chicken or like milking a cow or whatever.
Like I've never killed a chicken. I've never killed an animal. I've never like gotten my food from its source.
Okay.
Now
we're out of time. There were like 3 times when we could have really ended that, but that is an hour and 30 minutes.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, it was great. I'm glad you came. Thank you for
taking an orange.
Yeah, take an orange from our friend in Miami.